Hello, and welcome to That Recording Podcast, the podcast of conversations inspired by all things analog recording. I am your host, Joe Montague, also known as... Are you that Beatles drums guy off Instagram? All you need is drums. Yes, that is me. And each episode I'll speak with a different guest from all avenues of the recording world. You can expect discussions on everything from the mentality and philosophy of recording right down to the nerdy gear talk and everything in between. With guests ranging from industry legends to current music producers, engineers, musicians and gear manufacturers. If you're like me and share my enthusiasm for hearing their stories and learning from their experiences, then this is the podcast for you. Don't forget to hit subscribe on your podcast player so you never miss an episode. And if you enjoy this, please leave a rating and a review wherever you're listening. Obviously, 5 stars, please. And it really helps to grow the love for analog recording and helps me attract a variety of different guests. Thanks for listening and enjoy the show! Hello and welcome to another episode of That Recording Podcast. I hope you've all had a good few weeks. Happy Christmas and Happy New Year and all that jazz. On today's episode, I'm speaking with Jamie Evans, who is a producer, songwriter, musical arranger, multi-instrumentalist, frontman. Basically, somebody used the expression to me the other day, a hyphenated career, which is what we all have in music these days, really. And Jamie is the epitome of that for sure. He's a musical genius. He's just one of these people who can sing amazingly well, who can play guitar and piano and everything amazingly well. He just seems to bleed music. And he's got a really interesting production style. He's completely all-encompassing in whatever project he's working on, which is so inspiring to be part of. We worked together in 2023 on a project, and we've been friends ever since. I just loved working with him. He's absolutely infectious, and he's so funny. And I think it's great. Obviously, you can hear from this, and I think you'll love this conversation. We quite quickly get quite philosophical, musically philosophical about art and creativity and all that kind of stuff. It stops being an interview and starts being just sort of two friends chatting quite quickly, which I think you'll enjoy. I loved it. It was a Wednesday, I think I went down to Superfly in Newark, which is a beautiful studio, and we just hung out and chatted, and then went to a little vintage shop round the corner where I bought myself a new little vintage camera, and Jamie had asked the shop assistant to put away a little yellow submarine figurine, which I bought and is now on display at the studio. So anyway, I'm waffling. You'll love this. Here we go. Jamie Evans. That Recording Podcast is sponsored by Make Noise Pro Audio, the trusted source for new and used pro audio equipment. They also do repairs, so they are a veritable trifecta of audio accomplishment. Did you like that sentence? I was quite proud of that when I wrote that. A bit of, alliteration. There we go. Anyway, they have an incredible Instagram feed, and one of the things that I really love doing is every week they do a drop of the gear that they have had come in during the week. And I love scrolling through the stories, and there's usually 20 or 30 pieces that go up. And this is a bit weird, but I always play Guess the Price, because it's always really reasonable. And I must say that I am biased. I've been buying things from Make Noise for years. They're just such a great company. Obviously, I'm very grateful to them to be supporting this podcast, but I wouldn't be doing this if I just didn't think that they were brilliant. So do go and check them out at Make Noise Pro Audio on Instagram or makenoiseproaudio.co.uk on the interwebs. And on with the show! Jamie, thank you so much for speaking with me.
You're very welcome, Joe.
So we know each other from previous work, and it was one of those situations where, what did we spend 3 days together? And yeah. I think that even might have been the last
3 days and nights.
Yes,
let's clarify
that is true.
Yeah, three nights, very important nights.
One of the great things about the way that you work and the type of human that you are means that suddenly we're like best mates, and that might have been like whatever it was 2.5, 3 years ago, and I think this is the first time I've probably seen you in that time.
It is.
And felt like all of a sudden it's just like, oh, hey mate, how are you? And it was instantly just comfortable again.
Yeah. That was, thrown together. I first came across you obviously through your All You Need Is Drums
thing
on socials, and was just what, this guy's just giving stems away for free? So I downloaded it, and I contacted you straight away and called you. Because you really intrigued me, and we just got on really well on the phone. And then I kept you in mind, and then a session came up to do a record, and you were the first person I thought of. So in you came.
I love that. I wasn't fishing for you be talking about me, but it was like I remember that, and this is something I've taken on probably a huge amount actually since that happened. Is the idea that Instagram, which is where I sort of sell my wares, then became real life, because you immediately were like, I like what you're doing, let's have a chat. And there was no proviso for that talk whatsoever. It was just like, you're doing something cool, I do cool stuff sometimes, shall we speak? And I was like, go for it.
Instantly take it away from that platform and connect with the human.
Yes. And
that's the most important thing. That's where stuff gets done.
And it's something that I do routinely now. I almost feel like it's almost a bit kind of salesman, or not even salesman, that sort of business, corporate, that's the word I'm looking for, corporate side of things, of like, hey, let's jump on a call. But it works, it works. And when I say works, I mean works on a human connection level. Like, I just want to see, I do it routinely I've had calls this week with people where I'm just like, you're doing something cool, I want to speak to you. And whether we work together in the future is irrelevant. I just want to have a chat with you, because I think if we met in the pub, we'd be mates.
Yeah, and the world we're living in as well, this ever-changing world where we're forced more and more to stay indoors and do everything through our screens. Don't forget that we all need that validation in some respect, and eye contact is huge.
Yes.
And you can't get that through a Zoom call, you can't get that through a text message or anything like that. It's important to drop all that and connect, as we've always done. That's, like I said before, that's how shit gets done.
It is.
That's how it gets done. Yeah.
So the way I always tend to start is, what's your earliest memories of the idea that music could be recorded in a way?
I guess that would be from just being exposed to music in general. One of my earliest memories, I'd probably be about 2. And my mum, I grew up in Germany. My father was in the forces. And we had this old Habitat magazine rack, this lovely fabric. I just remember I used to always push the magazines out and lie in it like a hammock. So I must have been tiny.
I can imagine, yeah.
And my mum used to put these big headphones on and put Stevie Wonder's Music on My Mind on vinyl. And she just said that was the one thing I always used to respond to more than anything else. So I'd just sit for hours, or lie for hours, in this little magazine rack hammock, listening to that amazing record, which I still never tire of. And now I've inherited, my mum's still here, but she's given me the vinyl, and I still play it most days at home as well. So it was that, I guess, listening to the genius of Stevie Wonder, and bear in mind he was 21 when he made that record. Even at an early age, I felt completely at home with what I was being bombarded with. And early Stevie records like that, where he's just let loose, he's throwing everything but the kitchen sink at that. He's like, no, I'll play the drums, I'll play this, I'll play that. Bar, horns and guitar, he's playing everything, but no doubt arranging everything as well. And it just gave me a real sense of peace. I've always had a sense of peace from listening to music, any style, as long as it's got an emotional goal with what it's doing, and it always achieves that. When you receive that and you get chills, or it makes you ponder, it makes you think, or it inspires you to pick up an instrument, or just to carry on and keep making music or keep listening to music. It's a fundamental and very essential nutrition that we all need in our lives.
Yeah.
And then my dad played, my dad's a musician as well, not professional, should have been. Like I say, he was a soldier. But he had about 7 guitars around the house. Amazing. So every time he was off on exercise, and he'd be away for weeks and weeks or months on end, I guess in a way a coping mechanism would be, apart from listening to music all the time, and this is like the early mid-80s, when I was little, I'd just pick up a guitar, because I always used to be in awe of watching him play, and I thought, well, if I'm going to get close to my dad or feel close to my dad, I'll pick up his babies.
Yeah.
And I started teaching myself to play like that. Then, you hit your teens, you start buying records because you've got money in your pocket, and then you can start expressing your own taste. But I still found myself going back to the records that my mum and dad brought me up on. And would just steal them and for months on end and keep listening. And that inspired me and molded me as a musician first. Obviously, you can't get away or lie to yourself about where your influences come from and how you use them. I'm thankful for all the influences I had. I mean, I was brought up in a house really with lots of soul, Motown, bit of classical. My dad's a big jazz nut, jazz guitar. He took me to see Barney Kessel when I was 7 years old.
Amazing.
In Germany. It was amazing. I've got pictures somewhere. I'll send it on to you.
Yeah.
Of me and Barney talking halfway through, and I got signed vinyl at home from him. In fact, I asked him, because obviously, what does a 7-year-old ask the legendary Barney Kessel? I just said, what's your advice for a young, budding guitar player such as myself? And he looked at me and he took his glasses off and he looked straight at me and went, "Are you serious?" I went, "Yeah, I am serious." He went, "No, that's my advice." "Are you serious?" I was like, "Yeah, I think I am." He went, "Good, so am I."
Amazing.
That was it.
That's so cool.
And that stuck with me forever, that. Are you serious? Because it's the ones that take themselves seriously and take music seriously, and the power that music has on the listener seriously, that seem to really make a splash. And that's always stuck in the back of my mind, whether in sessions, whether I'm writing, when I'm listening to music. It's like you hold yourself, you keep a part of yourself aside for those ones that are serious and take it seriously.
Yeah.
But comedic music's also great as well. and then after my teens, I was in about 4 bands.
Were you
from 15
writing
to 19?
Yeah,
I was writing songs when I was like 8.
So you're kind of thinking you're principally a guitar player at first.
Yep.
And then at what point did songwriting start to become
Well, I
important
started
to you?
dabbling in the piano when I was about 8 or 9 years old. I got some lessons and they didn't last very long because I found it very weird as a kid that people would want to go and read sheet music and learn theory and basically become fundamentally a robot or a vehicle to play other people's music instead of expressing themselves. So I guess the songwriting went hand in hand with my ability. And obviously, you don't just start at 8 years old and you're hit by lightning and you're playing like Prince. No. It took a lot of blood, sweat and tears and a lot of tears. I've still got my first guitar somewhere in the house. And I can see where the salt from my tears has stained the top. It's this old classical guitar with a massive neck. But I persevered and I kept going because it always gave me something. And, I never lost my rag with it or anything. I just kept going and kept going and kept going. And then one day woke up and it just came to me. It just started, there you go. All the, my fingertips started hardening and I could actually feel the fret. But I could start expressing and putting some expression into what was going on in my head and get that out through the guitar. So I dabbled with the piano for a bit and then I thought, I've always relied on my ear more than anything else. Obviously, you learn the fundamental basics of theory and where it can go, but I've always seemed to have this innate instinct for being able to hear the finished thing. And I guess that's years and years of listening to music as a kid and overanalyzing everything and what's that? That's the hi-hat. What's the hi-hat doing now? Why is that working? Why is the bass working with the kick there and the space created and why did the lyric really hit me there?
Yeah.
And always analysing why. Not to the point where I went crazy, but just so I could enjoy it more and understand why that piece of music is making me feel something and how I can then manipulate that myself and express myself and use that for the great good. And then obviously growing up when I was a teen in the 90s, we couldn't afford a 4-track tape recorder or anything like that. So you literally I was writing songs just on paper.
Yeah, just remembering
and I always thought, well, if I can remember it, then it's worth it. And I had a little tape recorder, like cassette recorder, that I just put ideas on. Then I started a few bands at school, which then went into like me being in 4 or 5 bands. And I was actually, to the detriment of my education, I was focusing more on going out and playing because I loved it. And playing, and it was obvious to me at that point, it's like, well, this is what I'm going to do for the rest of my life.
Yeah.
No matter what happens, I just trusted the universe that I would end up where I need to be in order to put food on the table and, more importantly, just be creative every day and inspire and be inspired. And it's that beautiful exchange when you work in music. You meet new people, but you create new music together. It's amazing, always. It's better than money. It's better than anything. It's a beautiful exchange of time and creativity that leads always to that finished, let's say in inverted commas, product. But it's not to me a product. It's a song.
Yeah.
You know. And then when I was 18, I had this chance, just a freak opportunity. I was playing in this bar somewhere, playing guitar and singing, and this guy popped in. He said, I run a record label down in the East Midlands. I've got this band. We just sacked the singer. We're looking for a new singer. We want you to jump on board. It was a whirlwind, and two months later, I'm touring with Alice Cooper.
So is this the Mexicolas?
No, this is the first band I was in, a band called Lucan with a kicking cut.
Ooh.
Not great. The guys in the band were like in their early 30s. I was 18 years old. It was never going to work, but it was an amazing experience. And we had our own studio. It was a small indie label, not really on the map, but it was like, I guess, a pool of investors that believed enough in the songs, and we had a crack at it, and we toured, went around the world a bit, did South by Southwest in 2000, toured with, like I say, Alice Cooper. We did an arena tour with Def Leppard. And I'll just say this now, I wasn't a rockhead at the time.
Yeah.
It wasn't my intended thing. I didn't want to be like the frontman singer of a rock band. But I thought, well, what else am I going to do? When I was touring with Def Leppard, I was like 19 years old, but getting to play Wembley Arena, the NEC. With Alice, we went out all around Europe, got to know him quite well as a friend, and it was cool. It was cool to have that experience. Being thrown in the deep end, it really taught me a lot about where all the hard work really needs to be. Being thrown in the deep end and playing arenas is great, but if you ain't got great songs and you're not savvy in the studio and you haven't got a record to back it up, funnily enough, you're going to disappear off the face of the planet. And because of the age I was at when I joined the band, there was like this hierarchy where it was their band. I just came in last and I was a singer. So it took me a while to be able to get my creative juices into the process of writing. Yeah. And by the time that they had allowed me the space to do that, the band was fundamentally over.
Yes.
It was never going to work anyway, but I'm grateful for the experience.
Yeah, of course. That
then ran on into a second band, and we ended up, this is where I really got the penchant for working and being obsessed with what happens in the studio. And it was me and the guitar player carried on, and we were in a band called Finn. By the way, you'll get thankfully you won't see any of those two bands I mentioned online. You won't be able to buy any music because we never actually released anything properly either.
Okay.
Bear in mind, we did arena tours. I think we tried to release a mini album of 6 songs, but only sold it at gigs. It was never properly released. Which again, I'll touch on this later about my frustrations in the industry and the pitfalls of actually going in with people that haven't really got a clue about the industry itself. But that I'm not putting down their enthusiasm for it, or indeed I'm grateful for the money they invested. But it all fell down at the last minute because they didn't know what they were doing with it. They didn't know what they had, and they didn't nurture the potential. We had to do that ourselves. And then the second band became more of a studio band. We wrote hundreds of songs, recorded hundreds of songs, few little tours here and there. And then I was like, I'm done with this. I want to do this right. So me and the drummer of the band at the time, this guy Tim Trotter, we decided to leave and form Mexicolas, which was, I guess, my most fruitful part of as a recording artist, my career. We moved to Birmingham, lived in this old factory for 4 years. I was there all the time. Sacrificed quite a bit. I had young kids at the time, was married, but that didn't work out because I was away, all the time, and then toured a lot. And things took a more of a serious leap forwards in that band because I was given absolute, not control, but I was given absolute freedom to do what I really wanted to do musically.
Yeah.
And by then, bear in mind, I've been in a couple of rock bands. I was still in that mould, but I was able to take control completely of the writing side of things. And
so what was the process of writing and sort of putting together song ideas at that stage?
Because we started from scratch, we had nothing. So we literally just sat in there for days and days, weeks, months on end. And I said, we need to get a good body of material together before we even think about getting an extra member in and going out and playing live, so that's what we did.
So you're making demos?
Making demos ourselves, just on a little BR 1600.
Nice.
little Boss recorder.
Yeah.
Didn't have a clue about engineering. Didn't know anything. Just like stick a mic up. Let's just keep mics up permanently and let's just jam all day, sift through the ideas, and see what happens. But I've always had a very easy ability, I guess, to just have songs fall out of me, because I guess I don't put any restrictions or a ceiling on what I'm expecting. You know, I'm not trying to write Thriller. I'm not trying to write Sex on Fire. I'm not trying to compete with anything else that's around there. I'm just purely using music, and I always have, as a vessel to express myself in the moment. And there were certain things that were happening in my life at the time that really were the ammunition for all those songs, especially lyrically. And I found it a very cathartic process getting that together. And again, there was no A&R, there was no management really, so I was just left to my own devices, and I thought, this will be what it'll be. And it was a lot softer to start with, and then I found my groove with it, and the songs just started falling out. And then before we knew it, like within a year, we had way more than enough to think about, you know, recording a debut album. But before we did that, we started going out and playing live, and we went out properly, got an agent involved, got a good following. And then it all kind of snowballed from there. And then our debut album, X, was released in 2008. And we formed in 2006. So it was, it was quite a full-on process getting it up to that point. But then by doing it right and taking our time with the music and getting it right and being sure that this was what our sound was, because ultimately, if you don't believe in what you're doing, that's then going to translate across when you're playing live, the way you talk about your music, the way you write more stuff. You know, if you're faking it, people see right through you.
Of course. It's
got to be authentic. And then things started falling into place. We got a licensing deal in Japan with BMG. And then the wheels came off. The wheels just came off literally overnight. Came back from Japan, and there were some internal matters going on between the band. There was internal matters going on between the band and the label, and vice versa. And we kind of felt a bit stuck.
So when you moved to Birmingham,
yeah,
did you have a label involved at that point, or did you write?
We literally had. It was the same guy. So basically, when I was 18, the same investor.
Oh, I see. Okay.
Carried on the whole thing, and as people dropped away, it was like, well, Jamie, it's obviously you're the core of this, so we just keep going till we get there. So they folded what they did for the previous two bands, and we started a fresh new. I mean, I even came up with the name of the label for them. You know, it's like, we need a front, we need something proper. Let's do this properly. Let's work with producers. Because we'd always been doing it ourselves before. I said, I want to work with producers. I want to do this properly, because that's the only way to do it. So they said, okay, you know, and again, thankful for the time they gave me, but there was still this air of they don't know what they're doing. They don't know what they've got, you know, and opportunity after opportunity came and went because they just didn't grasp it. They didn't have the understanding. And that was a detriment of ultimately my career as a recording artist. So the band folded the first lineup after the first album, and then the label turned around and they were like, right, we're going to take the record completely away from all platforms. So no one can get it. No one can listen to it. So you can't actually hear the Mexico's debut album anywhere, apart from a few people that have uploaded it on YouTube. And we had a good run. We were, you know, favourites of Kerrang. We were touring, did big support slots. We were making good headway. We sold records in Japan. We had songs synced on the Hollywood films, video games, things like that. I never saw a penny. Not a penny.
Wow.
Never a penny. We've just basically had a wage, a working weekly wage, which is barely enough to, you know, live on. But we did it. And I was so naive. I just thought, you know, I'm in good hands here. This is going somewhere. Keep going. The reviews were great. You know, it was critically lauded. Top 50 rock albums of the year in like Guitarist magazine, things like that. We were building a good fan base. And then my hand was forced. I had to change the lineup somewhat, and then we moved properties from the factory to an old Victorian pub, and they turned the upstairs into a studio, and I started again. But I was like, fundamentally, really, the second album is more of a solo record. But that's where I really figured. I was like, why am I a producer? Hang on.
So you're not working with anybody making this record? I mean, presumably you're working in a studio with an engineer.
The first album worked with an engineer called Danny Sprigg. He was a brilliant guy. He was also our front of house engineer. He cut his teeth many bands, but he worked at Depp International for years, which was UB40's own studio. So he worked with them for like 20 plus years, and also went out front of house with them. And we just became really good mates. And he was only down the road. So when it came time to record the first album, we hired a load of gear in from FX Rentals and just holed up in this massive factory space and made a record for 6 months.
Amazing.
It was brilliant. I got pneumonia through the process. It was awesome. It was well worth every penny, and we had a good laugh making the record as well. But Danny's more of an engineer than producer. He'd be the first one to say that too. But we still said, well, you produced it.
Yeah.
You know, and then we did 4 or 5 tracks off that album with Wolverhampton bass producer Gavin Monaghan, who brought out something else in my sound. I was like, oh, this is interesting. Like he's got a vision here, and you can clearly hear, if you manage to get hold of the record, there is like a 50-50 split between the sound of the record and where it could have gone and what it ended up being.
Well, we discussed Gavin briefly before we started recording. He's still working. I mean,
he's a legend.
He's a big name.
I love him. Yeah, he's an amazing guy.
So he's involved with Nizloppy and
yeah. Scott Matthews. I think he's recently been working with Robert Plant. And he's started work on the Tony Christie's new album.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah,
that's cool.
Yeah, he's doing that.
I think I'm friends with some of the guys that are going to be playing on that. I think.
Brilliant.
Yeah.
No, Gav's a dear friend of mine, because he was the first guy really that came along back before we did the first album, and he'd heard some tracks just on like local radio in Birmingham and came to see me at the studio, and I played him some demos, and he started crying. And I was like, wow, okay, this, he wasn't faking it either. And when we connected, we were massively connected. We're still very connected to this day. I love him like a brother. He's been an amazing source of inspiration and a great friend through the years. So that was the first album. And the second album, I ended up just doing on my own with Danny Sprigg Engineering. And it was just me on my own. And then I brought in a session drummer who was coming up from Wiltshire to record, and that was it. It was just me for months. And how
did that feel?
It was amazing. Complete liberation.
Like a natural progression.
Loved it.
Yeah.
And the record makes way more sense. It made sense to me. It was like arrangement really started coming into the fore. Didn't get frustrated with parts or members holding anything back. It was literally it was like the gloves were off. My head was open, and I took my time with it and made sure it was right. And then delivered that record. It was mixed by Grammy consistently award-winning Adam Hawkins out in Los Angeles. And when it came to mix the record, he heard, we basically sent out to 5 or 6 guys. We had spec mixes coming back. And when I heard Adam's mix, I was just, oh my God, this is incredible. Like that is, I didn't track that, did I? And he came back and he said, look, whoever mixes this, I'd love to know who does this, because I'd like to give them some pointers of where I think they should take it. And I said, well, you're obviously the guy for the job.
Yeah, amazing.
So he did everything he could, and he was on the cusp of like going real big name in the mixing world then. And bless him, he did a cut rate for us, and he mixed the whole record in like 2 weeks. It was amazing process, back and forth. He's in LA, I was in Birmingham, and literally, Joe, it was like it was like one revision per song, if that. And to the point then when we took it to master, went to Dick Beaton at 360 Mastering down in Chelsea, and we sent it to him first. He called me up and he said, who mixed this? I was like, why? He said, it's amazing. This guy, Adam Hawkins. Who? Adam Hawkins out in LA. He's like, this is unbelievable. He said, I'm trying to run it through. He said, anything I'm doing, I'm undoing all the hard work. He said, this actually, so I've never said this. He said, this doesn't need mastering. So it's unmastered.
Wow.
Which Adam was really happy about, because I
he
called him. I was like,
was,
dude, he wants to know what you do. He says, it worked. I was like, yeah, what did you do here? So I can't tell you. But no, he's since gone on to work with like 21 Pilots. He's done Muse, and he's amazing. He's an amazing guy. And I was in America about 6 years ago, and we just missed each other. He wanted to come and see me because we never met in person.
Oh, right.
It was all remotely done. And bear in mind, remotely mixing a record in 2009 was quite.
Oh yeah, it's not like it is now.
Deal. Yeah. There's no Zoom or anything like that going on. It was all emails.
Carrier pigeon across the Atlantic with tapes.
Absolutely. And then we finished that record. I delivered the record, and then the label turned around and said, right, we're scrapping the distribution deal. We're not going to release this. We're not going to do any singles, no videos, no touring. I was like, what? And they pulled the plug. Still released it, but they said we'll just sell it on eBay through our own account. And so I walked. I basically said, well, whatever's going on, there's obviously something going on, but I'm done. I've had years of working like this, and I need to set myself free. So I did, and then that's the day my life took a huge turn, Joe, and became like a fucking movie, man. I started a lot of soul searching. I really missed the guys in the band. I missed that process of going there every day, and with that, I lost all my gear, everything. It was just all locked up in the studio. I never got it back. I took a couple of things away with me on the first day, never saw it again. So I started literally from nothing again. Was going through another divorce at the time, so I was literally homeless, couch surfing, but it was one of the most exciting times of my life. And the people I met, and the paths it led me down, and the music I started making, and the musicians I met, and ultimately led me to where I am today. And it's been an amazing baptism of fire that I wouldn't change for the world. And that includes, although I'm painting a bad light of the old label and that, I'm also very aware that I wouldn't be half of the musician or have the ethic, not the work ethic I have today, were it not for doing it so wrong for all those years. And this is a thing now, fast forward to modern day, to now, present day, should I say? Modern day. This is what I'm trying to drill into artists I'm working with now. It's like I did it the wrong way.
Well, this is why
I didn't feel like it at the time, but it was so wrong.
This is it. I mean, having been on the receiving end of your production, I know how you work, and it's so interesting to hear your story and how that's informed the way you go about things, because it makes sense. And I think there's also, going back to what you were saying just before, that the idea of, anybody who's listening to this who works in creative industries will know that if you're not scared of losing, which is, having said that you literally lost everything, there's nothing more to be scared of at that point. No. So you may as well just go hell for leather.
Never be lower
I'm
than
doing
that.
this. Yeah. No. And that's such an important lesson. May not have felt it at the time, or maybe it did, but that's a huge lesson that anybody creative listening to this will resonate with. It's that, we're all essentially just scared of failure and what that looks like, in the sense of, providing for, whether it be families or whatever it is that you're doing, whatever failure means to you. And if you're fearless about that, then you're free moving forward.
Absolutely. Literally left to your own devices, you are your own A&R guy, your own producer, your own engineer, your own writer. It's exhausting. But ultimately, everything falls down if the music's not right. Music industry is a very powerful word, powerful phrase, should I say? No, it's not a word, is it? Slap my thigh. Music industry.
It could be hyphenated.
Without the industry, you still got music. Mm-hmm. Without music, there's no industry.
Yeah.
And we've been led to believe that in order for us to, let's take fame and fortune completely out of this conversation. It's not about that. That's not what motivates a creative to be creative. The industry monetized it and made it and put a value on it. And I think that's the day music died for a while. We had moments of brilliance, I think, in the last 70 years of 70 plus years of recorded music, maybe more than that, actually. Let's go right back to Django Reinhardt and early classical recordings, etc., and all the blues. But something, it feels like it imploded rather than exploded. I think the explosion happened, that period, late 50s, mid 50s, right up until I'd say early thousands. Mm-hmm. There's your explosion. And then here comes the internet. Here comes digital. Here comes the ability to be able to create music on a laptop, have most of it do it for you, completely lose touch with the art of creation, completely lose the will to be almost in a childlike wonder and awe of how does a microphone work? What would happen if I use the cheaper microphone and you know, place the microphone here and run it through this bit of gear? It's all done now. It's all in plugins, and you know, it's an easy route around the way of ultimately dressing up a bad idea if the music's not right.
Mm-hmm.
And I think by the art of distraction, by all this tech, and especially in the many ways we can now record. I mean, you can record an album on your phone if you want now. There's still that fundamental law, which I think is firmly based in physics, where audio captured in a room with musicians that are taking it seriously, who are completely aware of the moment, of the space, of the song, of the power of music, and have absolutely like the ultimate respect for every device that they're using, from a guitar lead through to an ergonomically right pick that works for them. You know, look at Brian May with his sixpence. You know, every single thing is there for a reason, and when they're aware of that, something really magical happens. You know, you just got to turn up. You got to keep doing it. You got to be present, and then it lets you have it. You know, you can't force greatness. You can't force creativity. You can't. It's like falling in love. You can't make that happen.
No.
Tinder doesn't work. I've never been on it, but it doesn't work. It almost feels like the industry has become Tinder for music, because I keep swiping. Oh, that'll do. Throw 300 grand at that. Take some nice pictures, get them out, and then drop them.
I think what's interesting here is...
I sound very bitter.
Well, this is what I was about to say.
But I'm not.
Yeah, you literally took the words out of my mouth. Yeah. I was going to say, it sounds cynical, but knowing you, that's not what it is.
No, it's not. Because I'm saying it with a smile on my face.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. And it's almost like you've experienced all of that, so that and having, you know, tasted success in the form of making music full time and releasing records, being in magazines, doing stadium tours, and doing all of that stuff.
Yeah.
Realizing that the essence of all of it is still just music.
Yeah.
And that's what makes your experience so important as a producer. So a young artist coming to work with you, or a young band, or even not young, inexperienced is probably a better phrase for it, they've still got all of that ringing in their ears, because it's cyclical, all of this. You know, the next generation won't have the experience that says all of that stuff, and they will probably go, oh, he's a bit cynical, isn't he? But actually, that's not the case. It's just you've been able to pinpoint that down to, well, listen, boys or girls, I've been through this. Yeah. Let's just don't forget about that now while we're in the studio together. We'll just focus on the music. You know, you know in you that they'll learn. They'll learn whatever they need to learn from their experience of the industry. Yeah, of but for the moment, you can use your experience of not clouding your judgment with any kind of industry speak, and just focus on the music side of it, because ultimately that's what is at the core of all of this.
And it is, you know, you hold a gun to any recording artist's head and say, what's the best thing about your career? And they'll all say, it's that moment where that little idea I had bouncing around in my head came out, and I wrote the song, and then we were in the studio capturing it. That lives on forever. Mm-hmm. There's the odd gig that stays in the memory, but the rest of them, it's like just going to work.
Yes.
It's hard to get that constant feeling from playing, which is why bands tour so much, constantly chasing that energy, you know, but it's all there. Everything they do after they leave, you know, after that record is finished, everything that happens after that is because of what they did in that period of time, leading up to recording. And for me, the most important thing to make the artist aware of is like, this might be the only time you're ever in a studio. You know, even if you go and you sign a major deal, they might drop you, and with that, they're not just dropping you, they're dropping you, and the feeling of that would be awful. Like, and you just give up on yourself, and you become jaded, and all this blah blah blah. And eventually, you know, maybe in your 50s, you go, screw it, one more time. I'll just do it. And then it falls out of you, and it's be your best work ever.
Yeah.
But to make people aware that, like, this is now, this is it, this is the right now of wow. You know, take it seriously, enjoy it, be open, because do it right in here, and you can completely change your life forever. Record sales aside, what you do in here will complete the circle.
I think that's and that's true, you know, in the sense that even how we started this conversation, that we met doing 3 days worth of sessions, and you spend so much time intimately making music with a person. It's like a bonding experience. Like, you know, I don't even want to compare with other examples of different industries or whatever, because it wouldn't be fair. I haven't experienced that, but making stuff with other people in a kind of residential environment, even in just a visiting environment, pulls people together and bonds them in a way that is there almost, you know, forever. You know, and you know, I'll forever the guys we worked with then, I will forever go, yes, I remember doing that session with you, and that is the same for everybody, and that just goes to highlight the point that it is right now. You know, regardless of what the sort of end product is and what it does, the moment of the sort of moment of making it special in that time and in that space. Yeah, it's a bonding experience.
And it's also, you know, as a producer now, like, it's about winning your trust first. You know, you can't expect bands to come in and meet the producer the first day and magic happens straight away. Now and then that happens. Depends how prepared the band are, or if there's been some pre-prod, which is a very important process.
It's huge. This is on my list.
Huge process. But it's that point where it always comes in every record I've ever made, be that in 5 days or a 5-week record, or one I made early this year was nearly 3 months. You just got to keep knocking on the door. You can't force it. But the conversations you have. When I met you, Joe, you know, I was studying your aura, your energy, the things you would say, the rhythm to the way you talk. Like, no one talks to a click. We almost did to this interview. Started recording it and had a click on. But clicks are out. And it's the conversations, hearing little things and seeing those little idiosyncrasies that people have and harbour in their personality, that you can use for the betterment of the recording. It's my job to pull people together as quickly as possible, get them all thinking the same thing, which is ultimately serving the song, and then making that record. It's almost like if we'd recorded that record to tape, I wouldn't have pressed record on the first 3 or 4 days. I would have just been more about observing, suggesting things, especially in the arrangement, especially in the feel and dynamic and the way we play this, and always stepping back and objectively listening to what in my head would be the finished thing, and then making sure we're staying true to that and steering everyone back into, well, no, it's going to be this. I know we could do this. We could spend 5 hours playing around with this idea and that idea, but ultimately the song wants us to do it a certain way, so let's just do it that way, and then see where we get. And more often than not, that's always the right path.
One of the things
it's incredible to watch.
I remember one of the takeaways from working with you that I liked was when it kind of reached a point where we thought, this is working now. Yeah. And then you were like, okay, cool. Let's try the other thing. And like, no, well, I was thinking, well, no, this is working now. Why are we doing it? And you're like, no, we'll try this next thing, or whatever. You just were like, okay, well, we've got something that works, so we know that can live over there and work. Yeah. Let's keep exploring, see if there's something that works better. Yeah. And that was a nice. Don't think I was even aware of the kind of like, okay, well that works and let's move on. It was kind of like, yeah, that works, but let's dig a little deeper and see what else we can find.
Of course, you know, when you're trying to talk to a guitarist, you know, fundamentally just a guitarist is a guitarist, a drummer is a drummer. You're a bit different because you've got this thirst for also producing and engineering, and you're very passionate about that. So you understand where I'm coming from when I say this. But when you're working with just a bass player, and all bass players are great.
I understand what you're saying, yeah.
But sometimes they're struggling to actually get the vision. They're struggling to catch up with what is happening in the room, or be malleable enough to adapt slightly different feels, because they're used to, well, this is the way I play it. Yeah, but that's the way you're playing it, but play it for the song. Yeah, not for me, not for the tape machine, anything like that. Play it for the song. And then it's worth that 15 minutes of arguing about it, but we could just press record and just try it, and then you want you to come in away from that and not hold your bass anymore, and just listen to what you did compared to what we were doing 10 minutes ago. Now that's right, isn't it? No, I want you to hear. Just stay. Yeah. It's not admitting defeat, because half the time people get it right straight away, but it's having that patience and the foresight to think, well, this is still open to change. even the last minute, even on the last day. It's like, boom, it could be one conversation. I've had this happen on other records I've made where, we've gone in, we've set everything up, we've been tracking the song for like 3 days, and we're going to try some different drum parts out, and all of a sudden the drummer took a this is at Rockfield, by the way. I was working at Rockfield. It's about close the play of like the 5th or 6th day, and this song we put to the back of the queue because we weren't sure how it was going to work as a band. And the drummer put his sticks down and went to call his daughter or something, and he sat at the grand piano in the coach house, and he just started playing the piano. I was like, I didn't know you could play piano. So, yeah, he was from New York. I'm not going to attempt a New York accent here.
I think you'd nail it. You're great at accents.
I'm not going to do it. But he said, yeah, you still learn was my first instrument. No, he didn't talk like that.
Yeah.
David, this guy David.
Suddenly it's like 3:30 in the morning in the place where we're...
And I was referencing Talk Spirit of Eden at the time, as far as dynamic went. And it was completely away from the genre that we were working in. But I was trying to give him an example of like, this is a record really captured properly because of the dynamic and the awareness of the space and the focus in the performance, but yet it feels like it's still on the edge of like falling apart. It's amazing. So we'd just been listening to that, went in, and I saw him playing this, and I said, just play the chords, just play what you would play for this song we're working on. He started playing, and that was it. I was like, engineer, got Jack Boston to come in. He set up, I said, literally just mic's right in there, and I want this to be fully cooked, and I'm going to get him to play it really softly. So then I got the singer to go in the booth, and I said to them, right, I'm going to turn all the lights off, we're going to leave, which I didn't. We're going to leave, I'm going to leave you. You got half an hour. I want you to do this song from start to finish, you singing along with the piano, no click, no guide, no nothing, just feel your way through it. And I went back in the control room and I hid under the desk, the old Neve desk there. I wish I hadn't. It was just full of cobwebs and all sorts, and God knows whose DNA was under there. And I hid under there for half an hour, but the first take was the one. I spent about 5 minutes talking to them about, I want you to think about this. Don't think about the song. Think about these things that you've been telling me over the last week that we've been staying up late and talking and pontificating and putting the world to rights. I want you to think about your daughter. I want you to think about this thing that's been hanging over for years and years. And that's the mental headspace you need to be in for this song. And then half an hour later, they come back in. They think I've been hiding, so I came in. And they went, yeah, we're not sure, we kind of think we hit something on the last one. Maybe we could cobble this together. And I said, you nailed it first take. And I knew they nailed it first take because the singer burst into tears at the end of it. And that was it. And then it took another 2 days to then add other things to this free form, loads of space in there, and find the right things that worked for the song. And it was the biggest challenge in that studio to do that, to make that happen. The fiddle player was trying to play along to it, and it was like we tried everything from like, there's the audio wave, look at it, that's where you come in. And in the end, I knew it that well from listening to it over and over again. I was then in the live room with him, literally moving around like a ballerina in front of him, on my knees, trying to conjure this out. And we got it, and we did it just so many times till it was right. And all of a sudden they got it. And when you got it, the worst thing you can show me or any producer as a performer when you're in the studio is when you give your best or you nail something. It's like, okay, you just set a pedestal. There, you just set your mark, your benchmark there, so you can never go lower than that. Sorry, you can't say you're tired because that was after 5 hours.
Yeah.
And there you go. Now can you just go again and can you give me a bit more? There we go. Perfect. There it is. And then when you feel yourself do that, you never go lower than that. So there's a beautiful process that happens when bands come into a recording studio for the first time. They can have their rehearsal space, they can be demoing at home, they can go out live. That's a totally different entity and way of music. Going in and actually recording that definitive, finished thing takes a lot of soul, a lot of patience, a lot of faith in the process. And they all come out different, better people, more together, more aware, more self-aware, more aware of everyone else around them, more in love with music, more in love with what music can do to people. And if you make a band aware or an artist aware of that in a studio, they take that away with them, and they grow on it. They nurture it themselves, and they're always very respectful and aware of what that can do, the knock-on effect of what music does to us as people, rather than focusing on click tracks and tightening everything up and throwing everything but the kitchen sink at something. It's nothing more powerful, Joe. You know this, man. Sitting in a room and observing 5 musicians finally getting in sync with each other, and then you go, right, now we've been making silly mistakes. We're only human. That's what we do. But there's also beauty in mistakes as well. But you stand up, look at each other, and then do one more take, and it's like that was it. It was written in the stars. That's how it was meant to. That's how it was meant to be done.
Thank you so much for listening to That Recording podcast today. I'll be back next week with more conversation all about analog recording. And for now, don't forget to hit subscribe, and please do share the podcast with friends or anyone else you think is as nerdy about recording as we are. If you'd like to follow me on socials, you can find the podcast on Insta at That Recording Podcast. For my adventures in Ringo nerdery and all things Beatles drums, it's at All You Need Is Drums. And if you're just curious about my work and recording and maybe the odd picture of me having a beer or hanging out with my wife and kids, it's at Joe Montague Drums. And in other exciting news, I have a TikTok. I don't really know what TikTok does or is, but my wife says I need to have it and it's cool, and I should tell you about it. So there we are, follow me on TikTok. Don't be a stranger, and see you next week. Goodbye!